Now, Iran's parliament will vote later on whether to ban crude oil sales to Europe. The bill is in response to an EU-imposed oil embargo against Tehran and the freezing of assets of its central bank on Monday. Let's talk to the journalist and Middle East expert Nabila Ramdani. Good to see you. How much of this is posturing?
Well, it's very much looking as Iran flexing its muscles at the moment. As you said, we have the Iranian lawmakers today discussing a bill to cut off oil supplies to Europe, while you have UN observers on the ground in Iran to investigate its nuclear weapons program. Now, the decision of the Iranian parliament to cut off oil supplies to Europe is very much tit-for-tat policy, and it comes less than a week after the 27 EU member states decided to impose further sanctions on Iraq, including banning imports from Iran importing crude oil from Iran from the 1st of July. Now, what Iran is aiming to do is to turn back the sanctions on the EU by cutting off the oil supplies earlier than the deadline set by the EU.
So much pressure on Iran at the moment, and no surprise, but you have to say they never show any sign of buckling under that pressure. I mean, they're very, very determined to push ahead with what they're doing and all the the international concerns they've got about what's going on the nuclear front as well. Why is there zero response to the international pressure?
Well, they're hoping to take advantage of their position because they are OPEC's second biggest exporter in crude oil. And last year, in the last quarter of last year, they accounted for 25% of Iranian crude oil sales to Europe. So they're hoping to put a bit of pressure in return on the EU. But having said that, Saudi Arabia said it will step in to fill in the void, and there is no fear that the oil market will be destabilized.
And amid all of this, we know, don't we, that they're stoking the fire with what's going on in Syria.
Yes, very much so. What is a worrying development is Iran's involvement in what's happening in Syria, in the crackdown in Syria. The claim that 5 Iranian officers have been abducted by the Free Syrian Army is a sinister development in all this. Because it would suggest that not only Iran is supplying weapons to the Syrian regime, but also troops to prop up the al-Assad regime. And there has always been a Tehran-Damascus axis because of the Shia connection.
And tying all that in together, how difficult does that make? I mean, we know the UN has been reluctant to get involved in Syria for a whole host of reasons, but that Iranian connection, and now that the UN is being, unwillingly or otherwise dragged into this by the Arab League, how difficult does the Iranian situation make it for the UN?
It makes it hugely complicated because, of course, any Western intervention in Syria would have huge international ramifications because it would bring in countries like Iran, but also allies of Syria in the region, including in Lebanon and in the Palestinian territories. So there is, of course, a pressure from the Arab League to push the UN Security Council to take urgent action. But the key to a UN resolution is, of course, Russia, which is an ally of Syria.
Nabila, good to talk to you. Thank you.